Hello, my beautiful souls. Welcome to Spiritual Bloom, where we bloom within our consciousness, with your spiritual guide and twin flame coach Neha. In today's episode, we will be talking about what are the consequences that the Divine Masculine goes through when he hurts his counterpart, the Divine Feminine. So, have you ever wondered that what happens when the Divine Masculine repeatedly hurts the Feminine? Is stubborn in his approach? What happens beneath the surface when pride replaces vulnerability, when stubbornness replaces growth, and when emotional walls become stronger than love itself? Many people assume that Divine Feminine is the only one who suffers in these situations. They see the tears, the heartbreak, the longing, and the healing journey. But what most people don't see is that every action creates an energetic response. In the Divine Masculine and Divine Feminine journey, hurting the person who mirrors your soul doesn't simply affect one individual. It creates consequences throughout the entire energetic connection. So, most Divine Masculines, as we have noticed in this journey, act stubborn. But let me tell you that they are not stubborn because they don't care. They are actually stubborn because they care more deeply than they are comfortable admitting. They don't like to admit that they really care, because that feeling is quite intense, and they don't like confronting such emotions which has that much depth. So the Divine Feminine often awakens emotions that the masculine has spent years suppressing. They have suppressed their childhood wounds, fear of failure, vulnerability, and most importantly, they fear losing control over a situation or relationships. That's why you must have observed that the Divine Masculines are often controlling in this dynamic. So when these fears they surface, the ego activates defensive mechanisms. The masculine may become emotionally unavailable, refuse difficult conversations, they don't like confrontations, they avoid accountability, they create distance or ghost you. They pretend like they don't care and become workaholic. They focus excessively on their work or try to distract themselves. From the outside, it looks like indifference, but spiritually, it is often fear wearing a mask. It is their fear, and they don't want to show that fear in the open, especially to their counterpart. The more intense the connection becomes, the more pressure the masculine feels to evolve. And if he resists that evolution, rigidity begins to replace flow. When the Divine Masculine hurts the feminine, she usually feels the impact immediately. The Divine Feminine is naturally more connected to emotional energy. She is more grounded. She senses shifts before words are spoken. She feels inconsistency in the energy of her counterpart. She notices emotional withdrawals and detects unspoken truths. And this can trigger deep wounds of abandonment, rejection, betrayal, and unworthiness. For a period of time, this makes the Divine Feminine more she overgives. She starts chasing. She tries to explain herself repeatedly, seeks validation, and tries to fix the connection. But eventually, the pain becomes a catalyst, and the wound becomes a doorway. And this is where the Divine Feminine often begins her awakening. One of the biggest turning points in this journey people they don't realize is when the Divine Feminine stops chasing. Stops chasing not just physically but energetically. And this happens not because she stops loving the counterpart, it happens because she starts loving herself. She starts working on her self-love journey. And this is the moment many divine masculines underestimate. When the divine feminine finally realizes that you cannot force someone to choose growth, or you cannot heal someone who refuses healing, she shifts her energy from her counterpart to herself, and that is where her self-love journey begins. And as she withdraws her energy, something powerful happens. The energetic imbalance, which was carrying on for a very long time, begins correcting itself, and the masculine can no longer rely on her constant emotional presence. The comfort he once took for granted starts disappearing, and this often marks the beginning of his awakening. Because for a very long time, the divine masculine feeds on the divine feminine's energy, takes her for granted, thinking that she will always be there for him. Whenever he tries to seek comfort, he gets closer to the feminine. But as soon as the energy is transferred, like there's exchange of energy between them, again he goes back to his shell and acts like he doesn't know his counterpart anymore. They ghost them. Continuously they manipulate them. So that is very common in this journey. But it depends on the divine feminine when she comes into realization that self-respect, self-worth is something very important in this journey. She starts taking back her power, her energy, and she utilizes that energy into her own life by focusing in her own life, her career, her family, her health. And this is how the universe pushes the divine masculine through a very tough cycle and a tough awakening. And I'm using the word tough for those divine masculines who are extremely rigid and stubborn. Maximum of the divine masculines are extremely stubborn and rigid in their approach. They don't want to accept, even if the universe keeps on repeating synchronicities through names, through books, through receipts, through numbers, they'll keep on ignoring because they are very practical. They don't believe in things like occult or anything that is related to God. There are two types of masculine. One masculine is there who are atheists, and another part, they believe in God but not to that extent where they'll start believing in healing or synchronicities or angel numbers or any kind of message that the universe is trying to tell them to lead them into the awakening. So the tough cycle and the tough awakening happens for those divine masculines who are very stubborn and who does not want to grow, who don't want to grow in this journey. They are rigid and they are not flexible. And why they are rigid? Because they seek comfort in the life, in the routine, in the schedule they have been carrying on for so many years. So to change that is what they find most difficult, to do the shadow work, to see where they are lacking behind. They don't like to do it, and that is why they escape from the relationship. They escape from this dynamic. They try to run away. Now, many people, they believe that the divine masculine simply moves on, especially when they are in separation, or they don't try to keep any contact with the divine feminine. But what frequently happens is far more complex. Once the feminine detaches energetically, the masculine loses access to that emotional buffer that was unconsciously supporting him, because he was, dependent on her energy. He was dependent on the comfort that she was providing for so long. And suddenly, when that excess is gone, they come into realization that I am all by myself. Until this time, The feminine was supporting me. And yet, they are so stubborn, they don't want to do the shadow work or don't even realize that they are doing something wrong with the feminines. So, when they lose access to that emotional support, energetic support of the divine feminine, the divine masculine starts feeling restless. They get emotional confusion, anxiety, emptiness, and internal pressure, as if the soul has been putting them on some sirens that you need to accomplish this task on a certain date by giving them some limitations. So they feel that pressure within, and sometimes the pressure is external also. Now, how this external pressure works? They start feeling pressure in their workspace, job loss, career change, losses in business, or if they have invested any money anywhere, losses out there. They start suffering or going through many health issues, sometimes chronic, sometimes it's severe also. Many divine masculines, they even go through a situation in their life when they try to stop this journey, or they try to run away from this journey, or try to pretend as if such journey or such connection does not exist. I have seen they even lose a family member. It can be anyone who was close to them, just to shake them up and to make them realize that your life is going towards something worst, and if you don't do something about it, or if you don't look into yourself, into your darker wounds, this is going to get more worst for you. Now, this is done by the universe not to take revenge from the divine masculine. It is a part of his karmic cycle. They lose business, they lose money, health is shattered, family dynamic is shattered, the third party keeps on harassing them, death takes place in the family, the career no longer interests them, they feel no more enthusiasm about the same career they've been working since years, they've been doing so much hard work. So everything falls apart for them, not just internally but externally also, because those distractions that once worked stopped working. They try to be this workaholic, they try to distract themselves, dating some other people. It doesn't work. The external achievements, they no longer provide the same satisfaction, because the soul is demanding growth. The soul has set them on a timer, and the timer will explode if they don't act, because what he avoided externally becomes impossible to avoid internally, and they actually feel the pressure within. Now, as we all know that in this dynamic, both the feminine and masculine, they function as mirrors. Whatever one refuses to heal eventually appears through the other. And when the divine masculine hurts the feminine through avoidance, dishonesty, pride, cheating, emotional unavailability, he is often confronting aspects of himself he has not yet accepted and he doesn't want to accept. And the universe begins reflecting these lessons back to him. And he may encounter repeated disappointments at work, in family, relationship challenges, death, emotional triggers, circumstances that humble the ego, and this is done by the universe. Why? Because divine masculines are very rigid in their approach. They don't want to change. They fear change. They fear confrontations. They fear accountability. They don't want to take responsibility of this journey, and most importantly, they don't want to take accountability of their shadow side. And this is not punishment by the universe. It is a redirection so that their soul seeks balance. And before the soul can seek balance, it requires awareness. And for awareness, it is important that the universe shakes them up first. One of the greatest obstacles in this journey is ego. Because, ego is the root cause in this journey. The soul seeks the truth. The soul seeks authenticity and alignment. And when the divine masculine remains trapped in ego for too long, life becomes increasingly uncomfortable for them. Why? Because this journey is not designed to reward avoidance. It doesn't reward your avoidance or trying to escape the journey. This is designed to encourage individual evolution first. And every lessons that they ignore, every truth that they have avoided, or every wound that they try to hide, returns with greater intensity, demands acknowledgement, and seeks healing. No matter how much they try to run, they can't. They have to face it someday or the other. Now, the pain that is inflicted by the masculine often accelerates the feminine's growth. How? Feminines grow through this pain. She starts setting boundaries, healthy boundaries. She honors her self-worth. She comes into self-love. She heals her childhood wounds. Her intuition becomes powerful, and she starts trusting her intuitions. She reclaims her power back by taking back her energy and builds a deeper relationship with herself. Now, the version of the feminine that emerges from this process is not the same person who entered it. Now, after all these phases, the divine feminine becomes more discerning, more grounded, more confident and aligned. And as she rises energetically, the masculine feels the difference. He can feel it, that the divine feminine is no longer like before. She does not invest her energy into the divine masculine, especially when the masculine is not reciprocating to her energies. And the dynamic changes, because the old patterns no longer work, and the masculine feels the difference. Now the moment of realization is what? Now, for many divine masculines, the realization arrives later than expected. It often comes during periods of solitude, unexpected silence, transitions in their life, loss, or moments when they finally stop running. Suddenly, they recognize what the feminine was trying to show them all along. The feminine was trying to show them love, patience, support, lessons, and opportunities for growth. And what was once taken for granted becomes crystal clear to them. And this realization can be profoundly emotional, because awareness often arrives alongside regret. And when this happens, the divine masculines, they often feel guilty, and they come into regret for the way they have treated their feminines. They understand that what they've how they've treated their feminines, what they've made them go through, it creates so much guilt in their heart that they have no other option but to heal themselves. Now, after all these tests and trials, many people, they ask that can the connection recover? Yes, it does, but it depends on growth. Not promises, not words, or not temporary emotional reactions. Only growth, pure growth, internal growth, external growth. If the divine masculine genuinely confronts his wounds, softens his defenses, accepts accountability, and chooses transformation, healing becomes possible. And if the divine feminine, on the other hand, maintains her self-respect, self-worth, and refuses to abandon herself just for love, being needy, healing also becomes possible. But as we all know that reunion is never the ultimate purpose. The ultimate purpose is transformation. The journey was always meant to create evolution within both individuals, and union is a potential outcome. So growth is guaranteed when both the masculine and the feminine tries to maintain their boundaries and does their inner work. Now, the deepest lesson for the divine masculine in all this is that, strength is not control, and strength is not emotional suppression or stubbornness. True masculine energy is courageous vulnerability, accountability, emotional maturity, It is the willingness to face uncomfortable truths and situations. And the deepest lesson for feminine in all this is that love does not require self-abandonment. You cannot love someone else by abandoning yourself. You can love someone deeply, yet still choose yourself every day. You can care for someone profoundly, yet maintain healthy boundaries. And you can hold compassion without carrying someone else's healing journey, because that is not your job. Someone else's healing journey is not your job. Your work, your purpose is to heal yourself and concentrate on your own healing journey. In this entire thing, every challenge, every separation, and every trigger contains a lesson, growth, and wisdom. Because in the end, this journey was never about just finding another person or coming into union. It was always about finding yourself. So, don't think that just because in the starting stages the Divine Feminine goes through intense pain, emotional turmoil, anxiety, sickness, loss of a person, after a certain period of time, when the Divine Feminine comes into realization, starts working on herself, the tables turn. And when the tables turn, the Divine Masculine also has to go through equal pain, equal emotional turmoil and losses in their life. The universe is not biased. It knows how to balance the scales of justice. Though the Divine Feminine suffers during the initial stages, the Divine Masculine also has to suffer during the stages when they don't want to confront, when they don't want to accept this journey. It's the same for both. And the universe is not partial. So when you work on your twin flame journey being a Divine Feminine, always remember that if you are going through a very hard time now, the Divine Masculine will also go through their part in this phase, in this journey. We all have our own roles to play. And nobody can escape that pain, that karmic cycle, losses, grief, emotional turmoil, dark shadows, dark night of the soul. Nobody can escape. It's just that there's a difference of timing. One suffers initially and the other suffers a little late. But when the Divine Masculine starts suffering, now I don't mean here suffering because I like or I support someone suffering in their journey, but it is a part of this journey. That's why I'm using the term suffering. Now when the Divine Masculine starts suffering, is in grief, losses, that is the time when the Divine Feminine has come a long way in this journey and already knows how to balance her energy. Though she might be going through a lot in her life, she understands the depth of the situation and equally knows how to handle them. So like I told you, both the counterpart have their own share of grief, pain and losses. There's just a difference in timing in this journey. So I hope you like this episode on what are the consequences when the Divine Masculine acts stubborn or hurts the Divine Feminine. If you like this episode, please like, share, subscribe and comment on the videos. For any personal guidance, you can WhatsApp or email me. My contact details have been given in the description box and mentioned in the video. I provide 10 to 15 minutes demo session before booking any counseling or guidance sessions with me. Please support this channel. It brings a lot of motivation for me to make videos. I feel that you people are listening to me and it is helping you in this journey. I am not saying this to gain sympathy or because I want likes or subscribers in my channel. I am telling you this because I feel heard. I feel seen. I feel like my purpose is being met. So whenever you go through my videos, please like, at least comment, subscribe to my channel if you really like my content. That is, a part of exchanging energy. I give you wisdom and you give me exchange of energy by supporting me. So I hope you really support me in this journey to lead forward, where I can really help you all. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again in another episode.